Milford Harbor.
Hi, welcome to another show of Veterans for Peace. And my name is David Ross. I'm one of the co-hosts. Long story short, I volunteered twice, served 2 tours in Vietnam as a combat medic with the infantry. Things I saw you can't even begin to imagine. Things like seeing wounded children along with wounded adults and being told, pack up your medical stuff, stop working on those gooks, we've got to move out, just leave them. The Vietnamese will take care of them. Not a joint operation, no Vietnamese, nobody's taking care of these people. And here I am, like walking off with these, leaving these people like this. So other things made me turn totally against that war and then against war in general. This is my co-host, Dave Ransom. A little background.
Greetings, Dave Ransom. Well, in terms of wartime, I hated war, like Eleanor hated war, and got into the Korean conflict and became an infantry radio operator, and then my exercise of my prowess was in stretching a piece of field wire from the headquarters company to the silo. And I became a chaplain's assistant and did all kinds of stuff for the major at Camp Kilmer. What we didn't know was people from the Hungarian crisis were going to be there. And somebody who's one of my heroines is here with us today. Medea Benjamin.
And just a short note on Medea. She's co-founder of Code Pink Women for Peace, one of the most serious and also humorous groups. But you watch your television, when you see hearings in Washington, you might see her at the hearings. You might see her being dragged away from the hearings. She's a person with the courage to speak her mind. I've been arrested with her a few times. We've done like more demonstrations, run into each other here and there. She is an activist. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about Code Pink as an organization. And hopefully some of you will have an interest in Code Pink and maybe want to pursue this. You can always get a hold of Veterans for Peace, and we can link you up with Code Pink. It's a great organization to support financially. It's a great organization to be active as a member in. So Medea, you want to take it from there?
Yeah, we started Code Pink right after the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. Not to create a new organization, we just thought we were a bunch of women at an environmental gathering, and we were actually laughing about the color-coded alert system that the Bush administration had. Remember that with the code yellow
like the
was
Christmas
a mellow.
tree at a drag strip.
Yeah, and never said anything about what you're supposed to do when it became a code red, except get very scared. And we thought that's just to get people in, sort of softened up so that they will accept an invasion of Iraq. And we thought, oh, we needed another color-coded alert to say there are other ways to deal with that. Let's go after the individuals who attacked us, not use it as an excuse to attack other countries. And we did try to make it code hot pink like this. We like hot pink, except the URL was already taken by a porn site, so we couldn't be code hot pink. So we were Code Pink, and we thought, well, we would organize, mobilize, join in with groups like Vets for Peace and others and show how citizens can really do their job and protest a war before it started and stop it. But as you know, we did our job. Yeah. Unfortunately, Bush went ahead and did that invasion, and we've been at it ever since. We feel like this has been nonstop, 17 years now. I mean, you look back at Afghanistan, there's going to be an anniversary coming up very soon of 17 years, and I've been to Afghanistan many times, and you both might remember that the invasion of Afghanistan was supposed to be to help women, right? Because the Taliban had been so oppressive to women.
It was a good marketing line.
Yeah, it was a good market. You remember even Laura Bush came out and said, oh, we need to help these Afghan women. And you look today, after 17 years of being occupied by the wealthy country of the United States, people are still as poor as they were. It's still a miserable place to be a woman.
As illiterate and lacking of
Yeah, because they
medical
don't-
care and basic nutrition.
Even though the women can now go to school, they can't afford to go to school. And opium production skyrocketed. And on top of all of that, the Taliban are still there.
Yeah.
And they control a large portion of the territory. So that was supposed to be the, quote, good war. And it's just resulted in so much death, so much destruction, so many homeless, displaced people. And we look at, our inability to stop a war in Iraq and say, when are we going to be able to stop these wars? So we've been fighting along with Vets for Peace and many other organizations ever since.
The irony of Iraq was that, first of all, Saddam Hussein did not have weapons of mass destruction. Those kinds of weapons are reserved for the Western superpowers and the Soviets and the Chinese. We say we're destroying it, but we're doing it at a teaspoon at a time rate.
While we're investing $1 trillion in new, more usable
new nuclear
nukes.
stuff,
Yeah.
we have the world's largest store of chemical and biological weapons. Saddam Hussein, we supported him in the war he had with Iran. He was our ally. Remember Noriega? He was our ally. You don't want to be a U.S. ally because we'll cut your throat in a second. So support for the Islamic terrorist? No. He was a total dictator. He had his ears in every neighborhood. You didn't say bad things about Saddam Hussein. The first time someone would come and talk to you. The second time you would disappear.
Yeah, but Dave,
Watson.
let's see what has happened now and
so
how
who
much worse it is now.
And so who did the bombing? It wasn't Iraq. He told the mullahs, you preach the word of God is revealed by our prophet Muhammad. You preach that to the people. I stay out of your religion. Me, I am the politics of this country. You do not interfere in what I do. We have this separation, so we all are happy.
But you know what is very, very important to remember and understand about Iraq is that
Saudis.
The Iraqis, despite the repression of Saddam Hussein, lived Shia and Sunni side by side, intermarried. Neighborhoods were totally mixed. I have an Iraqi friend who said she never knew that her parents were mixed Sunni and Shia because it was never an issue until the U.S. came in and taught them how to hate each other.
Yeah.
So this sectarianism is something that has been exacerbated by the U.S. But I want to go from there to say, we know that the interventions have been so bad of Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria has been such a disaster. And now I wrote this book on Iran because I feel like it's deja vu now.
What's the name of your book?
It's called Inside Iran, The Real History and Politics of the Islamic Republic. And I feel it's
Just
important.
the final irony on the Iraq war was that the people in those airplanes, they were mostly Saudi Arabians, not Iraqis.
15 of the 19 were from Saudi Arabia.
So did we go to war with Saudi Arabia? No, we wanted a war with Iraq. It was a war of choice.
And the other
Who
sad-
but an idiot would choose to be in a war.
The sad thing I heard about recently, somebody had been doing some research, and they said that dear President Maniac Bush, his State Department did not know the difference between Sunni and Shia.
Well, his State Department didn't know much because they thought that they could take a total outsider who'd been living abroad for so many years, Ahmed Chalabi,
Yeah.
and fly him back in, and that he would be accepted as a legitimate leader, and that they would be able to create a stable, pro-Western government. And here we are now, 16 years later, and the government is now torn between pro-US and pro-Iran, and they can't figure out what could unite the country.
And the first thing that the person we put in charge of the new Iraq did was to disarm and fire the Iraqi army. Only they didn't really get around to disarming them. And they had the keys to the armory. So here you've got these guys with families to feed, no income, no job, no army to be in. The Americans have got your back. And so they took the keys to the armory, they looted the armories, they brought everything home to other warehouses, and 4 weeks later the bombing started. I mean, you don't just fire an army and put them on the street with nothing to feed their families with. What the heck did they expect?
And some of those generals who were secular generals joined ISIS because they were so angry at the United States, and this was a way to get at the West.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah. So when I look at how the Trump administration now is setting the stage, it reminds me so much of Iraq, because you take a country and you just demonize it. You try to convince the American people that this country is a tremendous threat to the United States, when Iraq was never a threat to the United States, and Iran is certainly not a threat to the United States. But this is how it's being portrayed, and the Trump administration has brought in Mike Pompeo as Secretary of State, John Bolton as National Security Advisor, both people who have always wanted to bomb Iran. And they are, in recent times at the UN Security Council and the meetings around the UN that have been happening, they have been focusing like laser-like on Iran. And I worry about it, and the reason I wrote the book was to educate the American public to say, Iran is not our enemy.
And also Iran is a total diversion from the fact that we're now working gently and firmly to overthrow the governments of Nicaragua, Venezuela, half a dozen others, and we're involved in 8 armed conflicts around the world, and I'll bet not more than 1% of Americans can name those 8 conflicts.
Absolutely. And
we're fighting every place. We are an empire, and we just keep expanding, and we'll keep expanding until we go broke.
So there's one positive thing on the horizon that I have been very involved in, and that is supporting the Koreans in their process of trying to solve a many, many decades old conflict. And you know about that one?
Long time.
And isn't it exciting to see that there is a possibility of peace? I applaud Trump in the one thing I think he's doing well on foreign policy, which is talking to North Korea. But we have to move in that direction around the world, and especially in the Middle East, because the Koreans are delighted that there's a chance to solve this 70-year-old conflict, and there's a chance to have economic relief for the people of North Korea if we can keep Trump on this path. But I look at it and say, this is exactly what we need in the case of Iran. Isn't it much better to talk to each other? And isn't it much better to find avenues for economic development that's a win-win for the different sides, instead of this economic strangulation that the U.S. is doing to Iran right now, that is not hurting the Iranian government, it's hurting the Iranian people. And the value of their currency has plummeted, prices have doubled and tripled. I have been in touch with people in Iran who say they're desperate, and that this is part of a U.S. strategy to make people feel a desperation so that they'll go out on the street and try to overthrow the government that's in power. And there are certainly many Iranians who would like to see a different government, but they don't want it to be from a U.S. intervention, and they don't want it to be something abrupt, because there's nothing in place that could run the country.
And I don't think the American people comprehend the true meaning of sanctions. Sanctions basically is, we tell all the other countries, you trade with them, we'll just stop our trade with you. Now, a very close long-term friend of mine who is an Iraqi, who's here now and can never go home again, she grew up in the sanctions. No antibiotics, no vitamins, all kinds of food things gone, all consumer things gone. Over 1 million, and this is documented in so many ways, including the United Nations, about 1 million Iraqi children died because of the sanctions. They starved, they couldn't get medicine, they couldn't get anything. Madeleine Albright was asked by a reporter when she was the head of our delegation at the United Nations, do you think in light of this it was worth it? And Madeleine Albright replied with her ice heart, yes, we think it was worth it. The American people care about people, but the American government, people are just something to be toyed with, to be smashed. Their lives are irrelevant. And we're going to turn around and they're trying to do the same thing to Iran. They want to crush the people so it'll get so bad at the bottom that people will do anything, including revolt, just to get the hope of change.
It's a
And
sadism.
we cannot allow this to happen. If we all have to go to Washington and make a ring around the White House till they beat us to death and nobody can come or go, we'll do it.
It's
Some of us.
It's a sadism, I think, Dave. I mean, I see this. It goes back, in our history, which is not really being completely taught in the schools, and that's one of the keys. But we've seen the same thing so many times in the Veterans Administration. Don't admit the problem. I guess
We have the very best people studying it.
we're studying, and so Agent Orange is going on. All these things are going on. No, we haven't got a handle on the problem yet. We can't do anything about this guy or that guy.
Well,
So the sadism is, let them die, then we won't have the problem. Same thing now with the kids.
Well, I want to go back for a minute to Iran because I feel here we're in a moment where we could stop a war from happening. And we've got to put all of our efforts into that, and people have to understand how disastrous it could be to be in a war with Iran. They are a powerful country. We're talking about a country of 80 million people with a well-trained army that has the ability to really fight back, not like in Iraq where it was dissolved.
And they have their own arms and munitions industry.
Absolutely.
Plus, they have all the very best from the Soviet Union. I studied Jane's books on military power. You know what? The F-35, there's Sukhois and Aleutians and MiGs that they have now. They can beat the tar out of that airplane. The guy that actually oversaw the development of the F-35 or the F-16 that they fly now, he said, and he spoke here, Andre, and he said the best thing a pilot in an F-35 can do in a dogfight is to punch out. So, the Iranians are not a paper tiger. No, they can't come here and defeat us, but we would lose so many people fighting them, and their willpower is like the Vietnamese. They just will not quit. They will not accept any more than the Afghanis will, Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires. They will not accept domination by an outside power. Their independence burns so bright, they won't put up with it. And the ones that don't like the government, they'll still not like the government, but they will fight for their country.
Well, that's right. And then think of
all the modern weapons and the Soviet weapons. Ask anybody about the Kalashnikov rifle. I'm sorry, the Soviets are gone. The Russians have weapons as good and in many cases better than what we have.
And then look at the geography of it. And the President Rouhani has already implied that they will try to shut down the Strait of Hormuz, where about 30 to 40% of oil that's shipped is shipped through. So that could send the global economy into a spiral.
Tailspin.
And then think of all the U.S. bases that surround Iran and the neighboring countries. And the Iranian military is not there sitting there waiting for a U.S. invasion. They are planning what they're going to do. They have allies, the Hezbollah in Lebanon. They have Shia militia inside Iraq. They can make life miserable for the U.S. and all of these surrounding bases. So if we think things are bad in the Middle East right now, they could get a lot worse if the U.S. dares. Now, one of the moderating factors in the administration right now is the Defense Secretary, Mattis, because he's no dummy. He knows all of this. But he has to contend with the hotheads that have never fought wars but like to start them.
Right.
So we are trying at Code Pink to do several things. One, there's new legislation now to say what the Constitution says, that the president cannot attack Iran without it going through Congress. Senator Tom Udall has just introduced that legislation in the Senate, so we're pushing for that. We're trying to promote exchanges by taking a large delegation, like about 100 people, to Iran in December. In December, we're also hosting a summit in Washington, D.C. for anybody interested to come and talk about how we're going to stop another war. And we are working with our European allies because they are trying to find a way to go around the U.S. sanctions. As you were saying, the U.S. sanctions don't just say U.S. companies can't trade with Iran. They say nobody can trade with Iran if they want to use dollars.
Yeah.
And international trade is done in dollars. So right now, the Europeans are trying to figure out an avenue of setting up a financial system that they could trade with Iran, including buying Iranian oil, without using dollars. And if they're able to do that, that will be helpful. If they're not able to do that, when the second round of U.S. sanction hits, which is scheduled for November 5th, that is when the Trump administration says that nobody can buy Iranian oil.
Wouldn't
and
it
of
be
course,
funny
that's the
if the
lifeblood
United
of
States
Iran.
ended up with the dollar not being the international currency, and
Well,
maybe China will have that off with their currency?
It looks like down the road, that is where we're headed, because between the trade wars that Trump is starting
Yeah.
and things like this imperial declaration that you will not be able to do business with the United States if you do business with Iraq, and many other ways that the U.S. is trying to dictate the terms of the global economy, there's a lot of resentment out there. And I think Trump is overplaying his hand, and there will be new institutions that are formed, new alliances that will be formed, and it actually, in the long run, might be good. In the short run, it's not going to be good for people of Iran.
And my little Facebook posts have often said, somewhere in there, he's made a fool of the United States in front of the whole world. And at the United Nations just a couple of days ago, he did. Yeah. I'm the greatest president, and they all laughed at him.
Yeah.
That's the status of the United States in the world right now.
Yeah.
They love what we do, how we accomplish. They love how our economy is so, or used to be so, because we hardly have any workers now. Try to find something bought, try to buy something made in America.
Weapons.
But, we do that. We do a good trade in weapons. But he has really alienated people all over the world, and he has made a fool out of this country. Maybe this is part of the hubris, the comeuppance that we deserve out of this. I just don't want to hurt people beyond our borders in the process of doing it.
That's
the
right.
man is dangerous, and he's a lot smarter than people. They see a buffoon. Yeah. I see a guy, a twisted genius, like a Hitler or a Goebbels or somebody.
Exactly.
You know, he's got all these weird ideas, but he's smart enough to make them happen. He knows how to play people, the art of the deal, all that.
Yeah.
He even gets contractors to work for him and doesn't pay them and doesn't even end up in court over it.
Sure.
I mean,
yes, and he might need a war to distract from all of the problems that he's having on the domestic front.
He's dangerous, genuinely dangerous.
And he's brought dangerous people in with him. And as you both well know, aside from that, we have a militarized society. We have this military, industrial, congressional, security, university, you name it, complex.
And we do not have
that likes to have wars.
We don't have a citizen soldier army with people like me or him that go in, serve, come out, tell our stories if we have something to tell and there's a reason to.
Yeah.
Most of us don't bother. But we now have a professional army, virtually a mercenary army. People go in for a lifetime career and they toe the line because that's how you move up and get the good retirement.
That's right.
So you do not have, you're not seeing the kind of GI resistance that we were able to foster during the Vietnam War.
Well, you're also not seeing the GIs being sent abroad in large numbers because these administrations know that the American people don't like that. So we have the drone warfare, we have special operations, and we have proxy wars. And that might be where we're headed in the case of Iran, because there's proxy war in Yemen, there's proxy wars in Syria, there's proxy wars that can break out in many different places. And that can lead, though, to direct war as well. So we shouldn't be complacent about any of this. And I also wanted to bring up the issue we talked about, the weapons manufacturers, how powerful they are. Just 5 companies, Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Raytheon, and General Dynamics, they eat up almost a third of the Pentagon budget just going to them for contracts. And they have a stake in keeping wars going. There was somebody very high up in Boeing who was asked how they feel with the U.S. pulling out of the Iran nuclear deal. The contracts that they were negotiating with Iran for billions of dollars were no good anymore.
But we're going to get it over here instead.
Well, he said, we'll get it from the conflict. You know, they'll sell even more airplanes
And what a
if
great
there's
business!
more
What a
conflict.
great business to be in. You make something, you destroy it, then they put in an order to replace it.
That's right. Even more expensive. So we started this campaign with Vets for Peace and a number of other groups called Divest from the War Machine. And there's a website, divestfromwarmachine.org. And we are working with groups around the country to follow the footsteps of the environmentalists who have gotten trillions of dollars out of the oil industry. And we need to do that with the weapons industry. So we have this wonderful database called Weapons Free Fund. And cities, universities, pension funds, individuals, anybody can go online and see if their investments are invested in war. So we can have Burlington City Council say, we're going to pass a resolution, we're not going to invest in war, and then check on this database to see where their investments are.
How about it, Burlington? Let's go.
Yeah, and all of Vermont, cities and towns all over Vermont should be doing that.
I'll go right back to
Statewide
Milton
should
and
be
straighten
doing
them
that.
out.
And then there's also the politicians. I know that people in the state are very proud, and rightly so, of Bernie Sanders, and people in this country are. But he's taken money from the weapons industry. In fact, in his campaign, over $350,000 from the weapons industry.
And he's done nothing to support the Palestinian struggle.
Well, at least he talked about the rights of Palestinians, which in this country, the way
pretty
things
far
are,
left.
that's far
okay.
left. But we need people, and whoever's watching this show should be calling his office and say, Bernie, why are you taking money from the weapons industry? It's a conflict of interest. And we need to get all of our senators and our congresspeople and even state legislators should be saying, I won't take money from the weapons industry, because they vote for the Pentagon budget. They're supposed to vote for if we go to war or not. And this shouldn't be something where they have an interest in supporting the weapons companies. And you know, Bernie's been very supportive of the F-35.
All 3 of them are.
Yeah, and we shouldn't. So this campaign to divest from war is a very important one and a very long-term one. We're just starting on it. We're getting cities like Berkeley that have already divested, but we need other ones to do that. And what better place than Vermont to set the stage for divesting from war from our cities, the universities, the pension funds, and other things that the state is invested in.
As my father used to say, nothing worth doing is easy. This isn't like an overnight one phone call thing. I started out against the Vietnam War at the end of the 60s. I came back from Vietnam in '65, and it took me a while. I was not a fully functional person for a while after that. But
Oh, you mean we are now?
I'm still not a fully functional person. I've yet to hit my zenith, but nevertheless, I've got like 50 years as an anti-war activist. We haven't gotten rid of war. Along the path, I've discovered women's rights, the environment. As a kid, I was demonstrating against how we treat non-white people, non-Christian people. All these issues. It's all the same thing.
Yep.
It's how we organize the money in our country. It's all about who has the money. I don't believe in the 1%. I think it's 3 or 4%, but there is a tiny, tiny percent that has as much wealth as everybody else together. And that is totally inimical to any concept of true democracy.
So your listeners, your viewers should go to either codepink.org
Yep.
or divestfromwarmachine.org.
Divestfromwarmachine.org.
Yeah.
Codepink.org.
Or codepink.org. And
Got it.
find out about this Divest campaign, because it's something that everybody can do. Everybody's got some connection. You live in a city. You live in a state, you have a congressional representative, you have a senator, you might have a pension fund, you might belong to a church or another place of worship, you might have individual funds. So there's all kinds of ways to make a very important move towards pulling our money out of the war machine.
And the one thing that the politicians understand, sad to say it, is money. They understand money.
And you know, these weapons manufacturers are so clever, the way they make a part of the weapon in every congressional district, and then they give some money to the Congress people so that the Congress people turn around and say, we have to support the weapons industry because it's jobs, jobs, jobs. And we know that there's all kind of other jobs that could be done with much less investment and would be something that's positive towards the
Solar
human
power,
community.
wind power, geothermal power.
All the infrastructure that we need. I mean, it's terrible when I have the opportunity to travel overseas. And you go to, I just came back from Canada last week. The public transportation was fantastic. The streets were absolutely clean, and you see these little machines going down every street, picking up every little piece of paper. You go to China and you see these fast rails that get you somewhere in no time. You go to Europe and the public transportation system is fantastic.
They have
the
bullet
healthcare
trains that
system
approach
is good.
200. They have bullet trains that approach 200 miles an hour. How about one from Vermont to New York to Washington to Florida?
You can't get from Washington, D.C., where I live, to New York in a fast train. Now, is that absolutely crazy? And if you do, it's very expensive, the trains. So you take a megabus or a bus that's, this old kind of transportation, instead of having a good fast rail system. So if we could get ourselves out of the war economy and free up all this money to be spent instead
all
on
this skill, that's
infrastructure.
labor force.
Yeah. So we need to go in that direction.
So there's one step, the divestment.
The divestment is a great step because it's also a way to educate people, going to the town hall meetings, going to the city councils, going to the mayor's office, having
Again and again and again.
and creating a community to do that.
Pleasant
Divest,
persistence. That's what
Yeah.
sells. Not, we need to do angry in their face sometimes, other times, especially on a personal level, pleasant persistent. I'm a reasonable person. I want to talk to you about a real problem with reasonable, doable solutions that won't make you lose your job.
And getting a coalition together that include people from the business community, people from the interfaith communities, students, retired folks, all kinds of people who can work together to pass these resolutions.
We have an investment group in Vermont, right? Do you know about that?
Yeah. I haven't worked with them.
Investment
My
in
problem
peace.
is I'm already spread too thin, and I need to spread myself thinner.
Yeah.
Well, there's plenty other people who are not doing anything that we
Yep.
need to get involved. And this is something particularly important for the young people who need to recognize that to ever have a college system that is free for anybody who wants to get an education, like they have all over Europe, like they have in Canada, like they have in the Middle East. We've got to get young people to care about where we're spending our money and to pull it out of the Pentagon and put it into things like education.
And if you want to create a group, an organization, a local one, whatever, but you just don't know how to do it, I will come and do workshops. I teach people how to organize. Everything from how to get people together around coffee, to go do something physical, to visit your congressman. I teach you how to write letters. I teach you how to use other forms of media. I mean, this show is just an example. I will teach you to become a public speaker. I will teach you how to resolve conflicts in the organization. I've been doing this for a long time. I was a co-founder of the first fully accredited nonviolent studies program in the world at a university at Syracuse. It still exists. It's now the renowned, I like nonviolent studies better. It's now the Maxwell School for Nonviolent Conflict Analysis and Resolution. So,
well, excellent, and that is a great offer to
so
anybody
I
who's
will
watching.
I will teach you the ropes. We'll get you a copy of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radical and a couple of other books from the masters. And we'll
How
teach
do they
you.
get hold of you, Dave?
We'll teach you. They get a hold of me through this station.
Through
Tell
the
them we
VCAM.
want to talk to the Vets for Peace guys about getting organized, because we don't really have the time or a space. We should have our number up. We don't. So, but you can call the station. They'll put you in touch with myself or Dave Ransom. I'll come to your place. We'll sit down and we'll talk. You can tell me what's on your mind, and we'll kick it around and see if maybe I can help you.
Excellent.
This is what I do. I'm retired now. I don't have to work. So this is my work again, as it was for many years before I, quote, got what the FBI referred to in my files as a normal life. I got a real job. Well, I got a real job right now, which is to help you help this country be what it should be and can become.
This is what Medea Benjamin is doing worldwide.
And
And
she's
we've
doing
got
it.
a lot of young people who are working with us.
This is
It's
what we
very-
need to go with, the
Yeah,
young
it's
people.
very exciting. We speak a lot
She's
at
doing it
universities.
24/7. I'm doing it much less. But the thing is, you don't have to do it 24/7. You can do a little bit here. And you know what? It makes a difference. Because a lot of people doing a little here, a little there, far outweighs what she or I or Dave do.
And we build community, and we have, for example, I live in Washington, D.C. We have potlucks all the time where people come together, we sing together, we play together, we have fun together. It's intergenerational, it's diverse, and that's part of the whole thing, is building community so that people
Culture.
want to do things together.
Culture of resistance, which
That's
isn't
right.
just go out in the streets and do. It's a culture. It's a whole lot of people being part of each other's system, neighborhood, friendship, social network. It's a profoundly powerful and rewarding experience. I mean, I'm blessed to have people like her, other people, the Ward Rileys, the Bill Perrys. I could go on and on. And
we learn about the world not through invading them and killing people. We learn about the world because people come in to work with us. We work right now with people from Korea, from Iran, from Iraq, and it's just a beautiful way to find out about other people's cultures.
Korean presidents
So-
talking and meeting.
I guess
Can they
I
influence
think they're
President
telling
Trump?
us we're
Yes, to
out
wrap
of
up.
time
Are
or
we
about
done?
out of time.
Yep.
So we're going to
we're
wrap
done.
up. We're going to wrap up for a cut right now. Thank you for being here.
Ah.
If you would be interested in setting up a group, I will be more than happy. Get a hold of VCAM. I urge people, consider joining Code Pink. It is an incredibly dynamic organization
Absolutely.
that does wonderful things, and I will promise you from my experiences with them, they have a lot of fun and build profound relationships with each other in the process. It's a good place to be if you want social change. Medea, thanks for
Thank
coming
you,
all
thank
the way
you.
up
Thank
to
you so
Vermont.
much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Divest from all the depression that bothers you. Do something.